gentlemen, welcome to Real Talk with Saieed Ali. I am your host, Saeed. We do want to thank you for joining us tonight, viewers. So straight into the news tonight, the Ministry of Works and Infrastructure has appointed a new board of directors to lead the Urban Development Corporation of Trinidad and Tobago Limited, that is UDECOTT. With the official installation taking place on Monday, today, Shankar Badesi will serve as chairman of the board, supported by Deputy Chairman Peter Kanhai, and other appointees are Dr. Roberto Osborne, Hema Sukhdari Singh, Okamat Supersad Maharaj, and Indira Bansi. Speaking at the ceremony, Works and Infrastructure Minister Julian John urged the board to embrace its mandate with the people's first approach and a commitment to national progress. The ministry congratulated the new board and pledged full support for its leadership, stating that with the combined expertise, UDECOTT is well positioned to shape a modern and resilient infrastructure landscape. So we want to thank the UDECOTT team, a board that has been newly appointed. So hopefully they're going to bring some documents to the table. Hopefully they're going to go through all the contracts that have been issued under the PNM. Hopefully we're going to get some insights on if these contracts were lawful, if it were unlawful, procurement laws, all these things. Hopefully we will know that in probably 30 days or less. But we want to congratulate the board and the members on the new appointments. A little bit of weather news. Trinidad and Tobago Meteorologists Service has issued a yellow level advisory weather alert for Trinidad and Tobago, which comes into effect at 2 a.m. Tuesday morning, the 10th of June, and it is ending at 4 p.m. on Wednesday, June 11th. So Trinidad and Tobago, walk with your umbrellas or your raincoat from Tuesday morning. According to the TTMS, there is a medium 60% chance of isolated showers. That's heavy showers we're talking about, and thunderstorm from early Tuesday morning. Hopefully, the most impacted weather is expected mainly on the southern and eastern offshores area of Trinidad. That is tomorrow morning. Then slowly extending across Trinidad and Tobago. The TTMS has advised of gusty winds and varying intents in the vicinity of heavy downpours. Possible impact are expected in intervals and area not anticipated. Too cautious. So Trinidad and Tobago, Tuesday morning, walk with your umbrellas, your raincoat, be prepared. This is from the TTMF. News tonight, opposition leader Penelope Beckles is describing the tension between Venezuela and Trinidad and Tobago as sad after a regional leader reached out to the Trinidad government to tone down and reduce tension between both countries. Her announcement follows statement made by Prime Minister Kamla Persad-Bissessar for using deadly force in response to Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro claims. Beckles was speaking during a press conference on Monday. Listen to this, Trinidad and Tobago.
It is sad that the government has conducted itself in such a way that we now have a regional leader, the Prime Minister of St. Vincent, the Honorable Ralph Gonsalves, reaching out and advising that the rhetoric should be toned down and that we should be reducing tension and, of course, relying on diplomacy. I think it is fair to say that 1 week has passed and we have not, subject to correction, heard anything from the Ministry of Foreign and CARICOM Affairs. And why has over 1 week passed without the ambassador of Venezuela being brought in for direct exchanges of information and collaboration to understand what exactly has transpired.
She is asking the government what measures are being taken via diplomatic routes to alleviate tension between Trinidad and Tobago and Venezuela.
We have an embassy in Venezuela, and of course, as I said, you have an ambassador from Venezuela here in Trinidad and Tobago. So the question arises, of course, as to whether we have dispatched any diplomatic notes. Why have we not briefed CARICOM and explained our position and solicited support if required by our CARICOM colleagues?
Meanwhile, former Minister of Foreign and CARICOM Affairs, Dr. Amy Brown, says the Prime Minister's reaction was disappropriate, as she seemed to have misunderstood Maduro's allegation. Emery.
Just to be very specific, because I did the checks myself, what President Maduro said was that foreigners had entered Venezuela or attempted to enter Venezuela, and that they had sought to make that entry from Trinidad and Tobago territory. He never accused the government of Trinidad and Tobago or the nation of Trinidad and Tobago of any negative involvement. That is what really occurred. And then the reaction was really disproportionate and not conducive to, not in keeping with the legacy of this nation.
He says this was a test of leadership and hopes to see a more reasonable approach from Prasad Bisesa in the coming weeks. Trinidad and Tobago, we're going to leave the story right here because there is a lot of interpretation to be unfolded still. I believe the Minister of Foreign Affairs met with some individuals from Venezuela today. Hopefully by tomorrow we'll know what transpired in that meeting, and we're going to give you some updates on that. But that is very tickling. But at the same time, Kamala Prasad Bisesa warned drug smugglers and human traffickers who pretend to be fishermen on the sea that if they are caught in Venezuela, they are on their own. Kamala Prasad Bisesa has a right to make certain statements that would defend illegal entities entering Trinidad and Tobago. And she gives support to the Coast Guard of Trinidad and Tobago to defend our borders, to defend our waters at all costs. So this is a tickling situation, viewers. Let me see how the Foreign and CARICOM Affairs Minister, Sean Sobers, is going to handle this. Kamala just made some statement for the Coast Guard, make sure and defend our borders, defend our waters, make sure we don't have illegal immigrants coming in from around, gun smuggling, human trafficking, whatever the case may be. She did send a message to the Coast Guard. Secure our borders. Moving along. Political leader of the Movement for Social Justice, MSJ, David Abdullah, has criticized the government handling of recent allegations involving Venezuela, urging a measured response grounded in diplomacy rather than speculations. Now, I'll tell you this, one thing I've been following up on this news, and I haven't seen the Venezuelan government posted any picture of individual seen as Trinidadians. Imagine 3 or 4 people. You think 3 or 4 people? This is a logical question that needs a logical answer. Do you think 3 or 4 people entering Venezuela water could destabilize the Maduro government? And anybody with common sense would figure out this. Anybody. Abdullah said, the government should have responded more cautiously. The Venezuela President Nicolas Maduro claims, rather than escalating tension throughout reactionary statement. He said, rather than be the statement that go backward and forward after the first statement by President Maduro, Trinidad and Tobago should have noted that they will be seeking to get information and evidence. Listen to this.
Rather than have, statements that go backwards and forwards, ratcheting up the temperatures, what ought to have happened is that Trinidad and Tobago, after the first statement by President Maduro, should simply have said, we have noted that statement and we are now seeking to get information from Venezuela about this incident that they have reported. The suggestion that Trinidad and Tobago had no evidence of anything is not necessarily the best foundation on which to rest your case.
Now, viewers, instead, he called on the government to engage Venezuelan authorities directly to understand the full context of the reported incident. Listen to this.
Suggestion that Trinidad and Tobago had no evidence of anything is not necessarily the best foundation on which to rest your case, because we well know that with respect to people moving across our borders one way, both into and out of Trinidad and Tobago, via the sea, everybody has said our borders are porous. And therefore, the Trinidad and Tobago authorities would not necessarily be able to have evidence of anybody leaving Trinidad and Tobago or others, including Colombians or anybody else, leaving Trinidad and Tobago and going elsewhere. So that foundation was not a good foundation. We well know that that a lot of movement takes place that is undetected by our national security forces. And therefore, the better approach would have been to get from the Venezuelan authorities precisely what they knew about the situation or what they know about the situation, which would then have enabled us as Trinidad and Tobago to make an appropriate response.
Prime Minister Kamala Persad-Bissessar recently warned the Venezuelan government that Trinidad and Tobago was off limits and that she would put the Coast Guard on alert to use deadly force if any vessel from that country sought to access local waters illegally. Trinidad and Tobago, I want to let you understand something. It's illegal if you're entering some other country water without notifying that country. It is illegal. So listen to this.
I want to make it very clear to the Venezuelan government and officials that they can do whatever they want on Venezuelan territory, but they cannot come here. TNT territory is off limits to them. If Mr. Cabello's comments are a veiled threat to enter TNT territory, they should reconsider any such intention. The fact is that as a responsible government, we have to take all threats against any incursion into our territory seriously. I will speak to Minister of Defense and the Attorney General to seek advice on protections for our Coast Guard, to use deadly force on any unidentified vessel entering TT waters from Venezuela. Smuggling military able-bodied men and women, TNT is off limits to them.
Now, Trinidad and Tobago, I want you all to understand something. There's a lot of tension building between Trinidad and Venezuela because of this. Because of this. Now, according to Coast Guard and police reports and things, there are illegal guns, cocaine, human trafficking, marijuana, illegal stuff coming from Venezuela to Trinidad. And we are not the only country. Of other countries, stuff enter illegal also. We are going for a short commercial break, but when we come back, 2386716, call in, let's hear your viewers, on this matter that has taken place between Trinidad and Tobago and Venezuela presently. After this.
We'll be right back.
When life throws you a curveball and you need a clear path forward, trust Real Talk Wrecking Service to get you back on track. Whether you're stuck on a roadside or dealing with an unexpected breakdown, our 24/7 wrecking service is just one call away. Fast response, reliable towing, and a team that's got your back. At Real Talk Wrecking Service, we don't just tow, we rescue. Real Talk Wrecking Service, your lifeline on the road to recovery.
Tired of wasting precious time at the bank applying for a loan, only to be denied? We understand your frustration. Here at Real Talk Group of Companies, we take a different approach. Contact Saieed, Managing Director of Real Talk Group of Companies and licensed moneylender at 238-6716, 242-7690 or 339-1670. Feel free to visit our office at number 14 Carney Savannah Road, Chaguanas, or number 132 Superior Road, Victoria Village, San Fernando.
At Real Talk Studios, we dedicate our time to highlight the blaring issues we face within our community. Catch us live every Wednesday between 7 to 8 p.m. Real Public Concern. Because your concerns are meant to be heard. Send your email to realpublicconcerns@gmail.com.
Real Talk Financing is offering you 5% on a fixed deposit for 5 years and over with upfront interest. Contact our central office at 238-6716 or our San Fernando office at 242-9944. You don't want to miss this great opportunity. Invest today and watch your investment work for you.
Welcome back.
So Trinidad and Tobago, an attack on the life of a Colombian opposition leader can strengthen a recent claim by Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro that a group of Colombians hitmen attempted to enter his country from Trinidad. This according to regional security expert Dr. Gavin Hira. Given the recent development between Trinidad and Tobago and Venezuela, listen to this.
Foreign interferences, destabilization plots or security threats from neighboring or external factors came just days before an actual assassination attempt on a Colombian presidential candidate, then yes, it may appear to lend credence to his warnings. Even if there is no direct link, the optics are powerful in the region's geopolitical discourse. For Maduro, it's a strategic opening to frame Venezuela as being under threat and to justify a firmer posture.
Now, viewers, on Saturday, a 39-year-old Colombian senator, Miguel Reeb, was shot in the head and neck while addressing a campaign event in Bogota. He was taken to the Santa Fe Foundation Hospital where he remained in critical condition. According to official report, a 15-year-old suspect was apprehended and was found to be carrying a 9mm pistol. The gun was purchased in Arizona, and authorities are investigating how it reached in Colombia. Dr. Hira is urging Trinidad and Tobago government to act carefully and diplomatically even after no evidence was found to support Maduro's claim.
Our next course of action needs to be one that addresses strategic diplomacy. We should first engage through CARICOM and through CELAC rather than responding unilaterally. Trinidad and Tobago should seek support or mediation from regional multilateral platforms. This allows Trinidad and Tobago to uphold diplomatic norms while insulating itself from direct backlash. We should request a closed-door bilateral meeting, for instance, with Venezuelan officials.
Now, viewers, all we know is that a group of men, according to Maduro, came to Venezuela from Trinidad waters. We have no evidence, according to Wayne Sturge, according to the Prime Minister, no evidence of individuals leaving Trinidad to go to Venezuela. They say their radar defense picked up no one in Trinidad. In Trinidad. So, is the statement correct, what Maduro is saying? Because technically everybody in Trinidad is bashing our government. But our government security ministry is saying that there is no evidence to back up such claim coming from the Venezuelan government, Maduro. So how do we fix this? How do we fix this? Can the Maduro government send evidence to our foreign affairs minister saying, hey, this is the individual that we caught? Who are these individuals? Do we have any information on these individuals? Do we have any picture of these individuals? And this is what we need. We need evidence. Everybody is bashing Kamala and Defense Ministry. But the thing is, according to the Defense Ministry, there is no claim to back up what Maduro is saying. This is coming from the Defense Ministry. We have no evidence. So why is Trinidad and Tobago on an uproar? Why is Gatsby Dolly on an uproar? Why is Amy Brown on an uproar? Maduro said something. He said he has evidence, but forwarded no evidence. In a court of law, what you need for prosecution to prosecute is evidence. This is what we need. Defense Ministry saying there is no evidence. None. So how do we now deal with this? And at the same time, Kamala is telling Maduro that whoever enters Trinidad and Tobago waters illegally, she have already indicated to the Coast Guard of Trinidad and Tobago that's supposed to be protecting our waters, to use deadly force. And in any country, Trinidad and Tobago, I will tell you this, in any country, the Coast Guard have rights to defend their waters. I want you all to understand that. Recently, Maduro made threats against Guyana. We ain't hearing nothing about that again. Now he started with Trinidad. So does Maduro have evidence to send to the Ministry of Defense and to the Foreign and CARICOM Affairs Minister, Sean Sobers? This is what we need. You see, everybody's bashing Kamala, bashing the ministry. But the thing is, they have no evidence. Imagine I am telling Navin, I have evidence, boy, of somebody leave your country to come in my country to destabilize our country. About 3 or 4 men. Now, in telling me this, why don't you send the evidence same time? So I would be able to say, with my government or my ministry, I'll be able to say, well, okay, you know what, Maduro? Well, I have seen the evidence, and let's get to the bottom of it. Who's these men? What is their plan? What is their contact? How far did it go? You see, Trinidad and Tobago, you cannot bash Jesu. I mean, Kamala said nothing wrong. She said nothing wrong by protecting our waters and giving the Coast Guard full authorization to use deadly force on any incoming illegal ships or cargo vessels, anyhow you want to call it. So that is what I said. Let's follow the story for a few days, see where the evidence is coming from, and then call a good night.
Good night, Mr. Saeed. Great program. I mean, this is a very hot topic, like
yes.
a hot bread. But I agree with Mr. Abdullah. You have to let diplomacy take its course.
Correct.
And we have been working closely with Venezuela. Our military,
yes,
yes. Defense Force, have been working very closely with Venezuelan military. And they come into our waters, they come into Stubbles Bay, and even Sirius, they come into Stubbles Bay. Sometimes they don't have to get diplomacy permission to do it. They make calls through the system, Coast Guard, and so on.
Yes.
Because of our good working relationship with them, they come in here and so on. Now, however, if there's a hot pursuit from Venezuela, National Guard is pursuing criminals, heavily armed people with boat fill up drugs and so on. They can enter your territorial water. These are international maritime laws.
Yes.
And even our Coast Guard here, hot pursuit, you could go into Venezuela water. That is why the military in our neighboring country have good working relationship. So I think the issue was, the Prime Minister say, well, use deadly force. It should never reach that stage because this is a very trivial issue. And diplomacy should come into it, that diplomats should communicate with each other and say,
correct.
There's a problem. Let us see how we're going to fix this problem. Give us the evidence. Produce the evidence that people have. But for years, since I know myself, there are illegal transshipment from Venezuela to Trinidad here and from Trinidad to Venezuela. People go, especially in the Caracas area, where they go to Carapana right there and they buy shrimps and crab and all kind of. And we still have it taking place today. So there's a lively trade between Venezuela and Trinidad. And that's happening not today, years, decades. That is happening. So we want to maintain good relationship with Venezuela, and we don't want to have no fight with nobody, and we must use diplomacy, and people have to be careful with the words, the wording and so on, Mr. Said. So you keep up this great work you're doing, man, this great program, and great job, man. God bless you and your staff, Mr. Said.
Thank you, my friend. So Trinidad and Tobago. Hira, he is advising the country to prepare itself for a potential fallout with Venezuela. Listen to this.
We should have a national security readiness by increasing intelligence monitoring and probably counterintelligence operations, especially given Trinidad and Tobago's proximity to Venezuela and the historical use of our islands as staging points to illicit activities. There should be a mobilization for public reassurance at home here, so that the government must reaffirm to citizens that Trinidad and Tobago is not a proxy for external interest and maintain a non-aligned, peace-oriented foreign policy. A clarifying statement that reaffirms our respect for Venezuelan sovereignty expresses concern for regional peace and disavows any interference in what is known as internal affairs could serve as a middle ground. But this kind of statement is not weakness, it's a strength through maturity and diplomacy.
So viewers, we're going for a short commercial break, but when we come back, Becker's put forward solution for school violence after this.
We'll be right back.
When life throws you a curveball and you need a clear path forward, trust Real Talk Wrecking Service to get you back on track. Whether you're stuck on the roadside or dealing with an unexpected breakdown, our 24/7 wrecking service is just one call away. Fast response, reliable towing, and a team that's got your back. At Real Talk Wrecking Service, we don't just tow, we rescue. Real Talk Wrecking Service, your lifeline on the road to recovery.
Tired of wasting precious time at the bank applying for a loan, only to be denied? We understand your frustration. Here at Realtor Group of Companies, we take a different approach. Contact Saieed, Managing Director of Realtor Group of Companies and licensed moneylender at 238-6716, 242-7690 or 339-1670. Feel free to visit our office at number 14 Carney Savannah Road, Chaguanas, or number 132 Superior Road, Victoria Village, San Fernando.
At Real Talk Studios, we dedicate our time to highlight the glaring issues we face within our community. Catch us live every Wednesday between 7 to 8 p.m. Real Public Concern. Because your concerns are meant to be heard. Send your email to realpublicconcerns@gmail.com.
Real Talk Financing is offering you 5% on a fixed deposit for 5 years and over with upfront interest. Contact our central office at 238-6716 or our San Fernando office at 242-9944. You don't want to miss this great opportunity. Invest today and watch your investment work for you.
Welcome back.
Welcome back, viewers. The opposition leader has put several questions towards government in dealing with school violent incidents. Opposition leader Penelope Beckles is of the view that Prime Minister Kamala Persad-Bissessar has added no new solution in dealing with school violence across the country. Listen to this.
What is your plan for reducing school violence? What is your plan for youth development? And we, of course, call on the Honorable Minister of Education as well as the Honorable Minister of Youth Development to speak on these matters. You are the government and you must account to the people who put you there.
So now, viewers, on Monday, the Education Ministry in a release said students who commit serious offense while in their school uniform will face a maximum penalty of expulsion from the school whether or not they are on school grounds. Now, Trinidad and Tobago, during a briefing on Monday, Beckles said the incidents are already reported to the TTPS and are already punishable by expulsion. Now, the opposition leader made suggestion for dealing with violent students. Listen to this.
It is clear that violent students must either be rehabilitated or removed from the school system. In terms of rehabilitation, we know that between the period 2022 and 2025, positive trends in school violence reduction were observed through measures put in place in terms of the Ministry of Education, at that time the Honorable Minister of Education, the Honorable Nyan Gatsby-Dolly, and of course through policies and programs at that time.
Now, she spoke on additional outlets for youth that would have given students a chance of school environments which occurred under the PNM tenure.
Where a partnership with Serval was established to absorb the expelled students or those at risk of expulsion, so they would have a chance, of course, at reform, what we would say in a different environment. The Ministry of Youth Development and National Service also had a role to play, as the rebuilding of youth camps was at an advanced stage. The ministry was also working, as we know, to expand MyLAT and MyPart, and of course taking the decision to include girls in those programs.
So to the opposition leader, you all had this plan in place since 2022 to expel students. Good? All right. Has it worked? Did your plan work, Nyan Gatsby? Because almost on a daily basis, we are seeing school violence. I believe some kid died in Tobago under school violence. I believe that was last year or earlier this year. So is your plan working? It seems not. Because there have been an escalation of school violence. It's on the rise. Students ain't taking on, if you get expelled, you get expelled. So now Gatsby-Dolly put something in place that caused violence in school to raise. It didn't work. From 2022 to 2025, it did not work. So now, Kamala steps in, brought out some policies, you all against that. But clearly, your policy, Gatsby-Dolly, didn't work. From 22 to 2025, school violence have escalated. Escalated. It didn't fix anything. So you had your chance, Gatsby-Dolly, and nothing that you put in place worked. You like the former Minister of National Security, Erla, came out with plans and none work. So now, UNC administration put something forth on the table. Let's see if that will work. Now, a controversial comment from former Education Minister Dr. Nyan Gatsby-Dolly is now drawing the attention and criticism. Speaking at a PNM event, Dr. Nyan claimed that many students involved in school violence come from PNM household. How did you know that, Gatsby-Dolly? Try and Tobago, listen to this. With the video.
Another area deals with parenting. And I'm saying this to us as PNM people. Recently, we heard the Prime Minister say that when our children misbehave in school, they're going to lock them up. Now, we are not closing our eyes to the fact that some of our children need to behave better. But I want to ask you, and I want you to ask yourself, because you see the videos. Some of us, we share the videos. I want to ask you, who do you see on those videos? Generally, who are the young people? And I'm saying to you as Minister of Education, I've seen many of the files cross my desk. And many of those children who are misbehaving have PNM mothers, PNM grandmothers, PNM fathers.
So Trinidad and Tobago, pull up the document, Gatsby Dolly school document. So Trinidad and Tobago, since 2022, you all brought out something, expulsion in school after I talked about it, expel them from school, right? You brought out this document in 2022. How many students have been expelled from school? How many students the TTPS dealt with from 2022 to 2025 presently? Gatsby Dolly, you're supposed to have some figures. You're supposed to have some figures to let Trinidad and Tobago know, well, hey, TTPS deal with this 50 case, we expel 100 of them. How many students got expelled? And from 2022 to 2025, there was an escalating rate of school violence in school. How much? How much? Because every day you go on social media, is some school children fighting somewhere in Trinidad or even Tobago. So clearly, Gatsby Dolly, that your system did not work. It did not work. Now, a school child going against an next school child with intent to do grievous body harm, it is a charge. Gatsby Dolly, did you know that? Did you know that? Apparently you didn't know that. If someone comes at my son, trust me, again, charge, the full brunt of the lawyer gets in, because your intention is premeditated. It is planned. You see, when we got a break, we're going to beat John. We're just going to beat up John. And you're planning until you get that break time. You're planning until you come out of school. You're planning whenever you see John, you're going to deal with him. How you call that Gatsby Dolly? Let me tell you something. You, Gatsby Dolly, wouldn't like if somebody come after your children. Because you will come out and tell the public, oh, well, you have to plan that before. You can't just attack him just so. You premeditated. So which means you know what you was going to do. Really? Since you know that what you was going to do, and you're going to beat that child to a pulp, well, here what's going on. You're going to face the law as a big person. Wounded with intent. Your intention was to batter. So I don't see, Gatsby Dolly, why you want to say something now, because clearly your plan didn't work in 2022 to 2025. It didn't. Because if your plan worked, Gatsby Dolly, today in society, we will not have had an escalating school violence. On top of that now, it is PNM children. So I want to ask you something, Gatsby Dolly. Being a PNM MP, being a representative, being a minister, being the education minister from 2022 to 2025, you as a PNM member couldn't go down to the PNM children, as you claim, and tell them, hey, what I do now, embarrassing me as a prime minister, as a PNM prime minister. What happened? What happened now, Gatsby Dolly, to the PNM parents? They can't train their child not to fight in school? Gatsby Dolly? Let me tell you something. The day somebody hit my children in school, I will make sure TTPS charge you wounded with intent to do grievous body harm. You're getting a big man charge. Gatsby Dolly, I don't care what you say. I really don't care what you say. He's a child. How you could charge that very same child? Now we are seeing in school, they're walking with knife. They're walking with marijuana. Those same children, Gatsby Dolly, those same children. Your plan failed, just like earlier one. So here what to do, Gatsby Dolly. You had your time. It didn't work, step aside, let somebody else do something. It's simple as that. Very, very simple. Call her good night. Hello?
Mr. Saieed.
Go right ahead, you're live.
This is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard in my entire life. So, is Dolly trying to say we have UNC children, PNM children,
Correct.
PDP children, all the political parties children?
Yes.
You ever hear such rubbish? That's all I have to say on this.
Thank you, my friend. Gasby Dolly should have go down to the PNM children. But did you do that? No, you didn't even do that because school violence has risen from 22 to 25. Now, me and Gasby also call on the PNM Women's League to assist the PNM mothers in taking care of their children. Since when does the PNM woman arm do something in Trinidad and Tobago? Listen to this.
To us that as a party, we have to enter the fight to help them. And as the Women's League, we have a role in helping our PNM mothers parent even better than they are. We have a role in understanding when we have single mothers that they need help. They need to understand how to parent their children. They need to understand how to get supervision for their children when they are out working. They need to understand that it's not okay to leave a child unsupervised for long hours. And if nobody else is saying that to them and helping them with those needs, the PNM has to step in. And the Women's League has a role there. Because we have to understand that when those children are hurting and when those mothers are hurting, it is our party in the main that is hurting.
Gasby Dolly, the only thing I will tell you is to shut your mouth. That is what I will tell you. That's what Saieed will tell you. You had your time, you had your plan, it failed. According to you, your PNM children and them escalated fight in school from 2022 to 2025. It is a fact. Now listen to this next story, viewers.
It is quite unfortunate that with so many challenges facing our school system for so many years, indiscipline being a major factor, resources being equally critical to the success of the school, that we have people talking about who children might it be, whether it is a PNM child, a UNC child, or whoever child. We must consider that all children belong to Trinidad and Tobago. Long before we are able to expel a child, we should be able to pick up that a child is in crisis. Long before a child is charged, we should be able to provide intervention for that child. Now, not all children can be rehabilitated in the school system. So even when we talk about suspension, we must ensure that our suspension sites are well managed with psychologists, social workers.
Trinidad and Tobago, zero tolerance policy. You want to fight, you will be charged as a fighter. It's that simple. You're putting down the ground laws. You choose to fight, good. You'll be expelled and then you will be charged. Something wrong with that, Gasby? Is something wrong with that? Nothing is wrong with that. You're going to school to learn. Your parents sacrificing to send you to school. They didn't send you to bust somebody's head, break their nose bridge, bust out teeth from them. Or no, they didn't send you for that. So since you want to do that, feel what it is now to be penalized by the real laws of Trinidad and Tobago. Trinidad, hey, hear this now. A little joke. Anyone earlier who looking at Real Talk now, would you sit down and take somebody else's child battering your child? No, you wouldn't do that. You wouldn't do that. But nevertheless, moving along. Former Minister of Rural Development and Local Government and former Attorney General Faris El-Rawi have stated that many public workers, particularly those with CPEP and the Ministry of Rural Development and Local Government Forestry Division are afraid they will be terminated or their contracts will not be renewed. Listen to this.
Our information is that the government intends to review these things en masse. And the fear that workers have, the thousands of workers have, is that they will just simply be put out of jobs, either by way of reduction of the number of teams that contractors manage, or by way of a cancellation of the program entirely and then a reboot and a reset.
He also confirmed that the government has taken a similar approach with respect to COVID-19 workers at RHAS. Caller, good night.
Good night, sir.
Go right ahead.
Wonderful program as usual.
Thank you, my friend.
As this lady sure she was a minister of education.
Yes.
With the amount of rubbish that she talking.
Correct.
The height of unintelligence. you ever know children that vote? But she talking about PNN children. So you see again when they bring in this racist thing, PNN, you see stupidness in this thing again.
Correct.
And she's supposed to be a minister of education.
Yes.
So we see why the children and them resorting to what is doing, because that is the level of intelligence they learn. If the height of the ministry talking that kind of crap, what do you expect from the children who don't do no nothing already?
True.
We supposed to be the ones they're learning from. Said, but you have a wonderful night. Again, these people proving again how ridiculous and waste of time they really was. You enjoy your evening.
Thank you, my friend. Now listen to this, viewers.
Whilst I'm at that, I can also confirm that the government appears to have taken an approach, especially with respect to COVID-19 workers at the RHAs. One RHA alone, 700 workers. Another RHA, 900 workers, to simply not renew persons into their contracts. So the issue of firings is enlarged by non-contract renewals. And therefore the opposition puts the population on notice that thousands of persons, particularly across the lowest paid echelons of CPEP, forestry, and now, if you look to the RHAs, where the direction has been given that there are to be no renewal of contracts for first-time contractors in particular. These are people who are employed, I'm speaking about contract of services and for services, are to be given without direct involvement of the Ministry of Health.
So far as, let's put a pin on your thought right there. I heard some contracts were renewed even before time. Some contracts were renewed on election day. So if you're saying that the UNC is about to send home thousands of people, my question to you, was this contract renewed with transparency? And that is the key thing. That is the key thing. Was it a hearsay them say renewal? So we're going to wait. I'm not going to say anything on this. I am going to wait to hear which contract had no transparency in it. Because I want to let you understand something. It's taxpayers' money going on the drain. Taxpayers' money. Now, Arawi refuted allegations of contract within CPEP and the ministry receiving exorbitant amount of salaries. Listen to this.
We are informed that the review of these entities, that is forestry and CPEP, is underway. And that review meets with the statements of Minister Padarat. Minister Padarat said that I was taking front, those were his exact words, before the issue of mass firings came forward. Therefore, in my humble view, I interpreted that as a confirmation of mass firings. What has happened so far, as the leader of the opposition has put forward, is that there is a fear amongst thousands of persons that they will be out of employment. If you tie that back to the Honorable Prime Minister's statements of being 1%, well, endorsing and encouraging that people that earn $120 a day are safe from firing is certainly a label that one is worthy of carrying to protect the most vulnerable.
So my question is, contracts that were renewed before their time and contracts were approved on election day? Is there transparency? Did they follow the correct channel? Are these contractors in fear now that they might get their contract terminated because there was not enough transparency? This is my question. So if thousands of workers are saying they are fearful of being sent home, what is the views of the contractor, of CPEP? Did the tender go through the lawful process? Was there transparency? Was it legitimate? So if all these things are being done by the book, then why are they fearful? Why are they fearful? Moving along. Minister of Public Utility Barry Patharat have stated that a new board at the Water and Sewerage Authority, WASA, has been given 30 days to outline its medium and long-term plan to address water situation in the country. Patharat.
Areas that don't get a supply for weeks, if not months. So a lot of those incremental changes have been happening, particularly, as I said, in South Central and East Trinidad. There will be a lot more to come, particularly now as the WASA board is in place.
Patharat stated that WASA must be held accountable and there must be transparency and performance from the new board. Patharat.
Be that somebody is monitoring and holding the companies accountable, that whatever they put out in the public space, that somebody is holding them accountable to make sure that when you're telling people they're getting water on a Monday, Tuesday and Wednesday, it is in fact happening. So I've been spending a lot of my time holding WASA accountable, redirecting water in some areas where you get a 24/7 supply, particularly in west part of Trinidad.
The minister also noted that the Couva South Thalpara constituency is not spared from WASA issue, stating that he recently met with the Inter-American Development Bank, that's the IDB, and the Tobago official to discuss challenges in water distribution schedules. So viewers, we have a new government in place, and again I say, it has only been a few weeks since the administration pick up their portfolios. You can't get everything done as the government is sworn in. 9 years you all suffered for, and nobody said anything. Nobody. Kamala make a statement about the Coast Guard defending your waters. Use full force. A lot of people jump up. Right now in the United States, they are hunting you down and sending you back to your country. Yeah. The ICE office, they're hunting you down. It doesn't matter where you are. In LA, in the whole of the US, they're sending you back. Imagine they make it easy for you now. Self-deportation. Allow yourself to be deported or allow yourself to go back to your country free. Otherwise, you will face whatever legal consequences. So you blame Kamala now for telling the Coast Guard, if a vessel is coming in illegally, use full force. You're vexed for that. But nevertheless, you can't please everybody. We have a new government. Let's see how they perform. Viewers, it was nice being here, but it's my time now to say good night and until we meet again.